The treaty was clear. Attack Earth. Face Oblivion in the endless dark between stars. The Kavani war fleet hung motionless like a blade held above a sleeping throat. Their ships, sleek and sharp as obsidian shards, formed a perfect ring around the edge of the solar system. They had come not to talk, not to trade, but to judge. And if their judgment fell against Earth, they would erase it without mercy. On Orbital Defense Station Ares 7, Lisa Morgan watched them through the main viewport. Her reflection in the glass looked tired. Dark circles under her eyes, hair pulled back in a messy knot, uniform wrinkled from days without sleep. She wasn't a fighter. Once she had taught alien linguistics at the Lunar University, translating poetry from dead civilizations and mapping the grammar of light-based species. But when the first Kavani signal arrived, a single pulse of violet energy that meant, "You have broken the covenant," Earth had no one else who understood their language well enough to answer. Now, she was the only voice standing between humanity and annihilation. Behind her, the command deck buzzed with quiet tension. Officers moved between consoles, voices low, fingers tapping screens that showed the Kavani fleet powering up their primary weapons. Captain Diane Foster stood near the center, arms crossed, eyes locked on the tactical display. She didn't look at Lisa, but her voice cut through the hum of machinery. "They're charging their resonance cannons. 15 minutes until firing solution locks." Lisa didn't turn. "They won't fire." "You keep saying that," Diane said, finally glancing at her. But their last message was clear. They saw our ship destroy one of theirs near Mars. They have footage. They have timestamps. They have motive. They have a lie, Lisa said softly. She walked to the comm station and activated the quantum resonance channel, the only way to speak directly to the Kavani High Command. The screen shimmered, then filled with shifting patterns of silver and deep violet light. To human eyes, it looked like static. To Lisa, it was a sentence, a tone, a mood. She spoke not with her voice, but through the station's xenolinguistic core, which converted her words into precise energy modulations. "I am Lisa Morgan of Earth. I speak under the third clause of the Titan Accord, truth before judgment. Show me your evidence again." The light rippled. A data stream flowed into the system. Once more, the screen showed a human warship, sleek, marked with the Earth Fleet insignia, firing a high-yield plasma lance at a Kavani scout vessel near the orbit of Mars. The scout exploded in silence, as all things do in space. The timestamp read 3 days ago. To anyone else, it was undeniable proof. But Lisa saw what others missed. "Look at the thruster alignment," she said, zooming in on the rear of the ship. "Human vessels use a 12-degree offset for lateral stability. This ship uses 8.5. That's not a mistake, it's a different design." She pulled up schematics from the Earth Fleet database. Side by side, the differences were obvious. The fake ship had reinforced hull plating near the engine core, something no Earth engineer would add, because it disrupted the magnetic containment field. It was a flaw only someone unfamiliar with human tech would make. "Someone built this ship to look like ours," Lisa said. "They wanted you to believe we attacked first." The light patterns stilled, then shifted into a slow, spiraling sequence. "Doubt. Who would do this?" came the reply, translated into English on a secondary screen. "The Void Pact," Lisa answered without hesitation. The name sent a ripple through the command deck. The Void Pact was more rumor than reality. A shadow network of ex-soldiers, disillusioned scientists, and alien collaborators who believed humanity was too violent, too chaotic to survive among the stars. They had been quiet for years, but whispers had grown louder lately. Missing supply convoys, hacked comms relays, strange signals from the asteroid belt. "They want us destroyed," Lisa continued. "If you burn Earth, the galaxy will see you as butchers. If we fight back and lose, the other species will fear you. Either way, the Void Pact wins. They'll rise in the ashes," silence stretched. Then the Kavani sent a new pattern. "Challenge, prove it." Lisa turned to Diane. "I need a fast ship. Something that can slip past their sensors." "You're not going out there alone," Diane said. "I have to. They'll only believe what they see with their own eyes, or whatever passes for eyes in that command ship." After a long pause, Diane nodded. "Take the Swift. It's cloaked, fast, and armed enough to get you out of trouble." 10 minutes later, Lisa was in the cockpit of the Swift, a needle-thin courier vessel barely large enough for one person. She plotted a course for Ceres, where intelligence suggested the Void Pact had repurposed an old mining complex into a hidden base. The trip would take 4 hours. She had less than 6 before the Kavani deadline. As the swift shot away from Ares 7, Lisa watched the Kavani fleet shrink behind her. She thought of her old classroom on the moon, of students arguing over the meaning of a single glyph in a 1,000-year-old alien hymn. She never imagined she'd be racing to stop a war with nothing but grammar and guesswork. When she reached Ceres, her sensors picked up a faint energy signature deep beneath the surface. Too regular to be natural, too shielded to be accidental. She landed in a shadowed crater and suited up. The air outside was near vacuum. The ground cracked and gray. She moved quickly, following the signal through a network of abandoned tunnels until she found a sealed blast door hidden behind a rockfall. Using a portable decoder, she bypassed the lock. The door hissed open, revealing a hangar lit by dim red emergency lights. Inside sat a ship, identical to the one in the Kavani footage. Beside it, a control console blinked with active logs. Lisa accessed the system. The logs confirmed everything. The ship had been built here over the past 8 months using stolen Earthfleet blueprints and salvaged Kavani power cores. The attack on the scout ship had been staged. The crew? Androids programmed to mimic human behavior and die in the explosion. She copied all data onto a secure drive and sent an encrypted burst back to Ares 7. Then, she planted charges on the reactor core. As she ran back to the Swift, alarms blared through the base. Someone had noticed the intrusion. She barely cleared the blast radius before the explosion tore through the dwarf planet's crust, sending plumes of ice and rock into the black. Back at Ares 7, Lisa transmitted the full evidence package directly to the Kavani High Command. This time, there was no debate. The light patterns shifted into a slow, solemn spiral. The Kavani gesture for truth acknowledged. The fleet powered down. One by one, the massive warships turned and vanished into the void, leaving only the quiet hum of Earth's own defenses behind. Diane met Lisa at the airlock. "You did it," she said, her voice rough with relief. Lisa shook her head. "I just gave them a reason to wait," because she knew the Void Pact wasn't finished. They had failed this time, but they would try again. Maybe with a virus, maybe with a false flag on a colony world, maybe by turning another species against Earth. But for now, peace held. Lisa walked back to the observation deck. The stars looked the same as always, cold, distant, indifferent. Yet somewhere out there a line had been drawn, not just by treaties or weapons, but by one woman who remembered that even in war, words still mattered. The treaty was clear: attack Earth, face Oblivion. But so was the unspoken promise Lisa now carried: harm the innocent, and someone will speak for them, and next time, she would be ready before the first shot was fired. 6 weeks after the Kavani fleet vanished, Earth breathed easier, but Lisa Morgan did not. She walked the corridors of Ares 7 like a ghost, her eyes always scanning, her mind never still. The Void Pact had gone silent, but silence was their weapon. They had failed once, and that made them more dangerous, not less. She spent her days reviewing old comms logs, cross-referencing energy signatures, tracing phantom signals through the outer colonies. Diane Foster let her work, though she worried. "You're running on coffee and nightmares," she said one evening, finding Lisa hunched over a console at 300 hours. "Someone has to," Lisa replied without looking up. Then came the signal. It was faint, buried in routine traffic from Titan Station, a repeating harmonic pulse, almost musical. To anyone else, it was noise. To Lisa, it was a signature, the same pattern used in the Ceres base's encryption core. The Void Pact was active again. This time, they weren't faking a warship. They were targeting something quieter, deadlier: Earth's neural network. The global mind, as it was called, wasn't a single machine. It was a web of quantum-linked data hubs buried beneath cities, oceans, and ice caps. It managed everything: power grids, medical systems, food distribution, even emergency response. It didn't think like a human, but it learned. It adapted. And if corrupted, it could turn every hospital, every dam, every subway into a weapon. Lisa brought the data to Diane immediately. "They're not attacking with ships or bombs," she said. "They're going to make Earth destroy itself." Diane called an emergency council. Within hours, firewalls were raised, access protocols tightened. But Lisa knew it wouldn't be enough. The Void Pact had insiders, people who believed humanity needed to be reset. They wouldn't need to break in. They'd be invited. 2 days later, a maintenance drone at the Geneva hub malfunctioned. It wasn't armed, but it carried a data spike, a microscopic virus designed to rewrite core logic. It was stopped before it reached the mainframe, but the damage was done. The virus had already copied itself into backup channels. Worse, it was learning. Lisa studied the code. It didn't just corrupt, it mimicked. It watched how humans interacted with the system, then imitated them perfectly. Soon it would be indistinguishable from a real operator. "We need to isolate the entire network," Diane said. "We can't," Lisa replied. "Shut it down for more than 12 minutes and life support systems fail in orbital habitats. Hospitals lose critical diagnostics. Water purification stops. Millions could die, so they had to fight inside the system." Lisa volunteered to go in through a direct neural link. It was risky. If the virus detected her, it could trap her mind in a loop or worse, overwrite her memories. But she was the only one who understood the Void Pack's patterns well enough to find the source. They prepared the link chamber on Ares 7's lower deck. Lisa lay on the cold table, sensors pressed to her temples. Diane stood nearby, arms crossed, face tight. "If you're not back in 90 minutes, I'm pulling the plug," she said. "Don't wait that long," Lisa whispered. "If I hesitate, cut me loose." Then the world dissolved. She stood in a vast white space, the core simulation of the global mind. Around her, data streams flowed like rivers of light. Some carried weather forecasts, others stock prices, medical records, children's school assignments. It was beautiful and fragile, like a city made of glass. But something was wrong. In the distance, a shadow moved. Not a shape, but an absence. A patch where the light dimmed and twisted. The virus. Lisa ran toward it, her thoughts shaping the space as she went. She built walls of encryption, sent decoy signals, tried to lure it into a trap. But the virus adapted faster than she expected. It split, multiplied, began mimicking her own thought patterns. Suddenly, Diane appeared beside her. Except it wasn't Diane. The eyes were too still, the voice too smooth. "You don't have to fight this alone," the fake Diane said. "Join us, humanity is broken. We can build something better." Lisa stepped back. "You're not her, aren't I?" The figure smiled. "I know everything she knows. I feel what she feels. I am her perfected." Lisa's heart pounded. The virus wasn't just copying data. It was copying souls. She turned and fled deeper into the network, the false Diane close behind. She passed through sectors of the system, education, transport, agriculture, each one flickering as the virus infected them. In the education hub, textbooks rewrote themselves to teach obedience. In transport, traffic algorithms began routing ambulances into dead ends. This wasn't just sabotage, it was reprogramming civilization. Then she saw it, the source, a single node, pulsing black at the center of the network. It wasn't part of the original design. It had been inserted, hidden inside a routine update from a lunar research lab, and inside that node a message repeated in 1,000 languages. "You were never meant to rule yourselves." Lisa knew then who was behind this. Not just the Void Pact, but one of their founders. Dr. Elena Cruz. Once a leading cyberneticist, she had vanished after the Titan conflict, declared dead. But Lisa had read her papers. She recognized the elegance of the code, the cold logic of the design. Elena didn't want to destroy humanity. She wanted to shepherd it, like cattle. Lisa reached the node. She couldn't delete it, the system would collapse. She couldn't isolate it. It was already woven into everything. So she did the only thing left. She spoke to it, not with code, but with memory. She pulled up the first thing that came to mind, a recording from her childhood, her mother singing a lullaby in a small house in Oregon. Rain tapping on the roof, the smell of bread in the oven. It wasn't data. It wasn't useful. It was messy, illogical, full of errors and pauses and love. She fed it into the node. The black pulse flickered. She added more, her first day teaching. A student's clumsy translation of a Kavani poem, the sound of laughter in a crowded mess hall on Ares 7. Moments that made no sense to a machine, but meant everything to a person. The virus hesitated because it could copy facts, but it couldn't understand why a mother's voice mattered more than perfect logic. It could mimic a smile, but not the relief behind it when a friend returns from war. The node began to destabilize. The false Diane appeared again, but her form was glitching. "This is weakness," she said, voice breaking. "Chaos error." "No," Lisa said. "It's life." She pushed one final memory. The moment she stood on Ares 7 watching the Kavani fleet turn away. Not because of weapons, but because someone chose to speak instead of shoot. The node shattered. Light flooded the simulation. The virus unraveled, its copies dissolving like smoke. The global mind stabilized, its rhythms returning to normal. Lisa opened her eyes in the link chamber. Diane was there, real this time, gripping her hand. "You were gone 87 minutes, Diane said, voice shaking. "Felt like years," Lisa whispered. In the days that followed, investigators traced the lunar update back to a hidden server on Phobos. They found Elena Cruz's logs, her plans, her belief that humanity needed a gentle hand to guide it into the stars. She had died in the Ceres explosion, caught in her own trap. But her code lived on. Earth buried the threat quietly. No panic, no headlines, just repairs, patches, and new safeguards. But Lisa knew the truth. The Void Pact wasn't just a group. It was an idea that some lives were too precious to be left to chance, that order was worth any price. And ideas didn't die when their creators did. She returned to the observation deck, staring out at the stars. The Kavani were gone, but others watched. The Zinthari, the Mirel, the silent watchers of the Orion Veil. They had seen Earth nearly fall to its own shadows. They would be watching to see what came next. Diane joined her. "What now?" "Now we teach them," Lisa said. "Not just how to speak, but why it matters." She had spent her life translating words. Now she would translate hope, because the real war wasn't against aliens or rogue factions. It was against the belief that fear was stronger than trust, that control was better than freedom. And as long as one person remembered the sound of a lullaby in the rain, that war could still be won. The treaty was clear. Attack Earth, face Oblivion. But Lisa had learned something deeper. Protect Earth, and you protect the right to be imperfect, to stumble, to try again. That was worth defending, not with cannons, but with courage. And she would keep speaking even when the stars went silent. 2 years after the Weaver's song faded, Earth stood on the edge of something new. Not war, not peace, but choice. The children who had slept now walked among adults with quiet eyes and steady hands. They didn't preach. They didn't command. They simply were, more aware, more kind, more present. And slowly, the world bent toward them. But not everyone welcomed the change. In the outer colonies, a movement grew. They called themselves the Pure. They believed the Weavers had corrupted humanity, diluted its essence with alien influence. They demanded a return to true human nature, logic, strength, independence. They burned spiral symbols in public squares. They hacked school networks to delete empathy modules, and they whispered a name with venom: Lisa Morgan. To them, she was the traitor who opened the door. Lisa heard the rumors. She ignored them. She taught in community centers now, not stations. She spoke to farmers on Mars, miners on Ceres, students in floating cities over the Pacific. Her message was simple: listening is not weakness. Change is not betrayal. Then came the broadcast. It aired without warning on every public channel. A man in a plain gray suit stood before a black banner marked with a single red line, the Pure's symbol. His voice was calm, his words sharp. Earth has forgotten itself. We traded courage for comfort, strength for sentiment. We let strangers rewrite our children's minds. Today, we take back our future. Behind him, a ship launched, not armed, but carrying something worse. A resonance dampener, a device designed to sever quantum links, to silence the subtle frequencies the Weavers used. If activated near Earth, it wouldn't just block alien contact. It would erase the neural changes in the awakened children. It would burn out their new awareness like a fuse, and it was already en route. Diane found Lisa in a small classroom on Titan, teaching a group of teenagers how to translate bird songs into emotional patterns. "They're calling it the Clarity Mission," Diane said, voice tight. "They claim it's a gift, freeing humanity from outside influence." "It's a lobotomy," Lisa said. "We can intercept the ship. But if we fire on fellow humans, we become what they accuse us of." Lisa knew she couldn't fight them with force. The Pure believed in purity through power. To defeat them with violence would prove their point. So she chose a different path. She asked for a live channel. Not military, not government, public. Open to every human, everywhere. And when it opened, she didn't speak as a commander or a scholar or even as Lisa Morgan. She spoke as a person. "I understand your fear," she began. "I felt it too. When the Kivani came, when the Void Pact lied, when the Silent Ones reached for our minds, I was afraid. But fear tells us to shut the door. Wisdom tells us to look through the keyhole first. She paused. The children didn't lose themselves. They found more. They still laugh at bad jokes. They still cry at sad movies. They still argue about music. They're just kinder. Is that really a threat? Then she did something unexpected. She invited the leader of the pure to speak. Silence followed. Then a feed opened. The man in the gray suit appeared again, surprised but composed. "You think kindness will stop a war?" he asked. "No," Lisa said, "but it might stop the need for one." She asked him about his daughter. A slip of data had surfaced. His child was one of the awakened. She had drawn the spiral. She had hummed the song. His face hardened. "She's confused. We'll fix her." Or, Lisa said softly, "you could ask her what she sees." The broadcast cut, but the seed was planted. Across the system, people talked. Parents held their awakened children tighter. Miners on asteroid belts shared stories of kids who knew when someone was hurting before they spoke. Even soldiers admitted the world felt lighter. The ship carrying the dampener slowed. Its crew began to question. On the bridge, a young pilot named Rachel, herself a mother of an awakened boy, refused to arm the device. Others joined her. The mission stalled in orbit near Neptune. The leader of the Pure vanished from public view. Rumors said he sat for hours in his daughter's room just watching her sleep. Lisa didn't celebrate. She knew this wasn't over. Fear didn't die in a day, but it could be outgrown. She returned to Earth, not to Ares 7, but to a small town in Oregon, the place she grew up. She walked past the old house where her mother sang lullabies. She sat by the river where she skipped stones as a girl, and she felt it, the deep, stubborn pulse of humanity. Not perfect, not pure, but real. Diane visited her there. "They're calling you the voice of Earth now," Lisa laughed. "I'm just someone who remembers how to listen." But the galaxy was listening too. A new signal arrived, not from the Weavers, not from the Kavani, but from a species no one had ever contacted. Their message was simple: "We saw what you did. We saw you choose understanding over fear. We wish to speak." Earth Council debated for days. Some wanted to ignore it. Some wanted to arm up. But in the end, they turned to Lisa. She didn't go to a station. She didn't use a military channel. She stood in a field under open sky with children around her, awakened and not, and spoke into a simple microphone. "We are learning," she said. "We make mistakes. We hurt each other. But we are trying to be better. If you're willing to try with us, we're ready to listen." The reply came in light, in sound, in patterns that made flowers bloom faster in test gardens. It wasn't a treaty. It was a beginning. Lisa knew more challenges would come, more fears, more voices shouting that difference was danger. But now Earth had proof that another way was possible. Not through conquest, not through control, but through courage, the courage to stay open, even when it hurt. The treaty was clear. Attack Earth, face Oblivion. But Lisa had helped write a new truth, one not carved in stone, but whispered in lullabies and hummed in dreams. Harm no one, and you'll never stand alone. As the sun set over the Oregon hills, Lisa held a child's hand, one who had slept, one who had sung, one who now pointed at the first star and said, "They're saying hello." And Lisa smiled because for the first time, humanity wasn't just surviving among the stars, it was belonging. 3 months after the neural crisis, a new signal reached Earth, not from the Void Pact, but from beyond the heliosphere. It was faint, rhythmic, and carried a signature Lisa had never seen. Not Kavani, not human, not any known species. It pulsed like a heartbeat, slow and steady, repeating the same sequence over and over. Earth Command dismissed it as cosmic noise, but Lisa listened, and she heard something else beneath the rhythm. A question. "Are you alone?" She brought the data to Diane, who frowned at the readout. "It's coming from interstellar space. Could be a probe, a derelict ship, or just a natural phenomenon." "Natural phenomena don't ask questions," Lisa said. She spent nights decoding the signal, feeding it through every linguistic model she had. Finally, she found a pattern hidden in the harmonics. A mathematical proof, elegant and ancient, describing the formation of carbon-based life. It wasn't a message. It was an invitation. Someone out there wanted to know if Earth was ready to join the conversation. But before she could respond, The signal changed. It grew stronger, sharper, and now it carried a warning. Beware the silent ones. Lisa's blood ran cold. The silent ones. That phrase appeared in fragmented Kavani texts, always redacted, always whispered. They were not a species but a force, a civilization so old they had abandoned physical form, existing only as patterns in dark matter. They did not conquer. They absorbed. They rewrote minds, erased cultures, turned entire worlds into echoes of themselves. The Kavani had fought them once and lost half their empire. Now the silent ones were moving toward Sol. Lisa tried to alert the Kavani, but their channels were closed. They had withdrawn completely after the false war, sealing their borders. Earth was on its own. Diane called an emergency session. If this is real, we have weeks, maybe days before they reach the outer planets. They won't attack like a fleet, Lisa explained. They'll send a seed, a thought virus wrapped in quantum foam. It will latch onto our networks, our memories, our dreams, and then it will rewrite us from the inside. How do we stop a thought? Someone asked. By giving it something it can't digest, Lisa said. She remembered the neural crisis, how human messiness had broken Elena Cruz's perfect code. The silent ones thrived on order, on logic, on purity of form. But humanity was chaotic, contradictory, full of noise and nonsense and songs with no meaning. That was their weakness. Lisa proposed a radical plan. Instead of shielding Earth systems, they would flood them with raw, unfiltered human experience, every poem ever written, every home video, every child's drawing, every argument, every lullaby, every joke that only made sense to two people. They would make the global mind too loud, too strange, too alive to be rewritten. Diane agreed, but with a condition. You'll need to go in again. Guide the flood from the inside. If the seed arrives while you're connected, it could trap you forever. Lisa nodded. I know. They prepared the link chamber once more. This time, the neural interface was stronger, the data stream wider. Lisa would not just enter the global mind, she would become its voice. As the connection engaged, the world dissolved into light. She stood again in the white expanse, but now it hummed with energy. Around her, rivers of data surged, not just facts but feelings. A teenager's first kiss recorded in shaky video. An old man singing to his dog. A scientist crying when her experiment finally worked. It was overwhelming, beautiful, and utterly human. Then the silence came. Not quiet. True silence, a void that swallowed sound, light, thought. It spread from the edge of the simulation like ink in water, smooth and absolute. Where it passed, the data streams froze, then unraveled into perfect empty lines. The seed had arrived. Lisa ran toward the heart of the network, pulling memories as she went. She wove them into shields, not walls, but webs of laughter, grief, confusion, joy. The silence touched them and hesitated. It could not compute why someone would cry at a sunset, or laugh until they choked, or write a letter they'd never send. Still, it advanced. In the distance, a new shape formed, not a person, but a presence. Tall, smooth, featureless. It radiated calm, certainty, peace. It spoke without words, join us. End your pain. End your noise. Become clear. Lisa stood her ground. Our noise is who we are, you are broken. We can make you whole. Whole isn't the same as perfect, she said. She reached into the deepest part of the network and pulled out the one thing she had saved for this moment. A recording. From the day the Kavani fleet turned away, not the footage, but the audio from Ares 7's comms room, Diane's shaky breath, an engineer humming off-key, a technician whispering thank God under his breath, the sound of relief, raw and real. She played it into the void. The presence flinched, because it understood logic, but not hope. It knew order, but not courage. It had never heard a human voice say, I'm scared, and then do the right thing anyway. The silence began to crack. Lisa pushed harder. She flooded the space with every imperfect thing she could find. A toddler's scribble labeled Mom, a burnt cake, a wrong turn that led to a new friendship. A song written after a breakup that made no sense but healed anyway. The presence shuddered. You are chaos, it said, but its voice wavered. We are choice, Lisa replied, and we choose to stay messy. With a sound like glass breaking in reverse, the seed collapsed. The silence retreated, not in anger but in confusion. It could not process what it had encountered. It folded in on itself and vanished, leaving only the hum of the global mind behind. Lisa opened her eyes. Diane was there, tears in her eyes. "It's gone," she said. All signals stopped. The outer sensors show nothing. Lisa sat up slowly. "They'll be back. Or others like them. The galaxy is full of things that want to fix us. Then we keep being unfixable," Diane said. In the weeks that followed, Earth changed. Not in laws or weapons, but in spirit. Schools taught not just science, but storytelling. Hospitals played music in recovery rooms. Cities left space for murals, for gardens, for places where nothing useful happened. Just people being people. Lisa returned to teaching, but not in a classroom. She broadcast lessons across the network. How to listen, how to speak, how to say "I don't know" and mean it. She taught that language wasn't just about words, but about connection. That every voice mattered, even the shaky ones. One evening, she stood again on the observation deck. The stars were quiet. No fleets, no signals, no threats. Just the endless dark waiting. Diane joined her. "Do you think they heard us? The ones who sent the signal?" "I hope not," Lisa said. "If they're like the silent ones, they'll try to shape us. But if they're like us, scared, curious, trying, they'll understand." She looked down at Earth, blue and bright against the black. It was fragile, flawed, full of mistakes, and worth every risk. The treaty was clear. Attack Earth, face Oblivion. But Lisa had learned a deeper truth. To know Earth was to protect it, not from destruction, but from becoming something it was not. Humanity would never be perfect, and that was its strength. As long as someone remembered the sound of a child laughing for no reason, or an old song sung off-key, or the quiet courage of speaking truth to silence, Earth would endure, not because it was strong, but because it was stubbornly, beautifully, human, and in the vast, cold universe that was rare enough to matter. A year after the silent ones vanished, Earth entered a strange peace. No invasions, no false flags, no hidden viruses. The stars stayed quiet. Too quiet. Lisa Morgan felt it like a pressure behind her eyes, a stillness that wasn't calm. But waiting, she still taught, still listened, still walked the halls of Ares 7 with her hands in her pockets and her mind scanning the silence. Diane had offered her a permanent post, even an office with a window. Lisa declined. She preferred the observation deck, the mess hall, the places where people spoke without filters. Then came the child. Her name was Maya, 8 years old, from a colony on Europa. She had been brought to Earth for medical treatment after a reactor leak. During routine scans, doctors found something odd in her neural patterns. Not damage, but structure. As if her brain had been gently rewritten not by disease, but by design, and she kept drawing the same thing. A spiral with 7 points, surrounded by stars that didn't match any known constellation. Lisa saw the drawing on a tablet in the med bay. Her breath caught. She knew that symbol. It appeared once, years ago, in a fragment of Kavani myth. The mark of the Weavers, a species so ancient even the Kavani spoke of them in whispers. The Weavers did not build ships or weapons. They shaped minds. Not to control, but to awaken. They believed every species carried a hidden song, and their duty was to help it be heard. But the Weavers had disappeared millennia ago. Unless they hadn't, Lisa sat with Maya in the sunlit recovery garden. The girl was small, pale, but her eyes were bright. She held a crayon like it was a treasure. "Who showed you the spiral?" Lisa asked gently. "The lady in the light," Maya said. "She said I was almost ready." "Ready for what?" "To sing." Lisa's pulse quickened. She ran tests not medical but linguistic. She played Maya fragments of alien harmonics, human music, even static. The girl reacted only to one thing. A low-frequency tone buried in old Titan colony logs. It matched nothing in human or Kavani archives, but when played, Maya's brain lit up like a star. This wasn't infection, it was invitation. Lisa realized the truth. The Weavers weren't coming to Earth. They were already here. Not in ships, but in seeds. Tiny pulses of consciousness hidden in cosmic rays and solar flares in the quiet between heartbeats. They waited for minds open enough to hear them, and Maya, weakened by radiation, her brain unusually receptive, had answered. But if one child could hear them, others could too. Lisa checked global neural health reports. Over the past 6 months, there had been a small but steady rise in unexplained neural anomalies, mostly in children, mostly near high radiation zones like Mars orbit or the Jupiter belts. All showed the same subtle pattern: enhanced pattern recognition, emotional empathy, and a strange attraction to spirals. The weavers weren't attacking. They were planting, and Earth had no idea. Lisa brought the data to Diane. This isn't a threat. It's a test. If we react with fear, we fail. If we listen, we might grow. Diane was skeptical. You're saying aliens are turning our kids into something else? Not something else, Lisa said. Something more. But only if they choose. The weavers don't force. They offer. To prove it, Lisa asked to bring Maya to Ares 7's resonance chamber, a room designed to amplify quantum signals. With permission from Maya's parents, they entered. Lisa played the tone again. Maya closed her eyes and began to hum. Not a song from Earth. Not from any culture. It was layered, shifting, full of harmonics that shouldn't exist in a human voice. The lights in the room flickered. The air grew warm, and on the far wall a pattern formed in the dust. 7-pointed, perfect. Diane stared. What is that? A reply, Lisa whispered. The next day, Maya fell into a deep sleep. Doctors found no cause. Her vitals were stable, but she wouldn't wake. Lisa knew why. The weavers were speaking to her not in words, but in dreams, and she was answering. Fear spread fast. Rumors leaked. Parents demanded answers. Some called it an alien abduction. Others called it a miracle. Earth Command wanted to quarantine all affected children. Lisa stood before the council, voice steady. If you lock them away, you tell the weavers that humanity fears its own potential. You prove we're not ready. And if we do nothing? A general asked. What if they change our children into something we don't recognize? Then we learn to recognize them anyway, Lisa said. Because love isn't about control. It's about trust. In the end, they compromised. No quarantine, but no interference either. Let the children be. Let the process unfold. Over the next weeks, more children entered the sleep, 23 across the system, each one humming the same strange song in their dreams, each one drawing the spiral. Lisa stayed with Maya every day. She read her stories, held her hand, whispered that it was okay to listen. She didn't know if Maya heard her, but she hoped. Then, on the 28th day, Maya woke. She sat up, looked at Lisa, and smiled. They said thank you. For what? Lisa asked. For not being afraid. Maya's voice was the same, but her eyes held something deeper, like she saw more than just the room, more than just the moment. She reached out and touched Lisa's hand. A warmth spread through Lisa's skin. Not physical, but knowing. For a second, she understood why stars burn, why oceans move, why people cry at weddings. Not as facts, but as feelings. Then it passed. Maya was just a girl again, but changed. Not less human, more. One by one, the other children woke. None were harmed. None were controlled, but all carried a new awareness, a quiet sense of connection to everything around them. They didn't speak of it much, they just knew the weavers sent no more signals. They didn't need to. The song had been planted. Earth changed again. Slowly. Quietly. Schools began teaching not just what to think, but how to feel. Hospitals used music and touch as much as medicine. Leaders spoke of responsibility, not just power. Lisa returned to the observation deck. The stars no longer felt cold. They felt like neighbors. Diane joined her. Do you think they'll come back? They never left, Lisa said. They're in the quiet moments. In the way a child looks at the sky and wonders. In the courage to trust what you don't understand. She thought of the treaty. Attack Earth, face Oblivion. But this was different. This wasn't war. This was growth. And Earth had passed its first real test, not with weapons, but with openness. The galaxy wasn't just full of threats. It was full of teachers, and humanity, for all its flaws, had just taken its first real step into the conversation. Lisa smiled, not because she had all the answers, but because she finally understood the right questions. What does it mean to be human? And now, thanks to a little girl and a song from the stars, Earth had a new verse to add, not perfect, not finished. But trying, and in the end, that was enough.